I live in a quiet, neat residential neighborhood in the suburbs of Ohio. Life flows smoothly between work, family, and unwritten community rules. I am a woman who highly values personal boundaries. Last winter, toward the end of November, I was invited to join the neighborhood's organizing committee. It was a small job, mainly revolving around preparing for the annual Night of Lights Christmas event and resolving a few arising issues. Working alongside me on the committee was Angela, a stay-at-home woman who lived just a few houses away. She was about 40, always tidy, simple, and had a perpetual smile. But Angela seemed to have an excessive tendency toward physical contact. As I mentioned, I always value personal boundaries, and Angela's actions made me extremely uncomfortable. She frequently touched my arm and gripped my shoulder when talking. During short meetings, she would deliberately sit close, leaning against me as if we were longtime, intimate friends. The peak was one time when she inexplicably grabbed my hand and squeezed it lightly, with absolutely no valid reason. I politely removed my hand but felt horrified. I tried to maintain physical distance and communicated only with my eyes. Although I clearly signaled my discomfort, Angela constantly tried to pull the relationship closer. The committee's work only required a few minutes of exchange via phone or email, but Angela frequently invited me to her house for afternoon tea or asked me out for coffee. I accepted her invitation twice, purely out of courtesy, but subsequently made excuses to decline. Our lifestyles were too different. I worked full-time, with a packed schedule every day, while she was a relaxed homemaker. These two orbits could not intersect. Her persistence gradually turned into intrusion. One evening, I opened the door and found Angela standing there, holding a warm apple cinnamon pie. She smiled brightly and offered the pie. "I just baked a wonderful batch of pie. Wanted to bring some over for you to enjoy." When I refused, explaining that I had just finished dinner, Angela's smile vanished. She looked at me with a hurt expression. "You're too distant with me." She uttered a reproach, her voice full of sulkiness and a slight hint of a whine, like a girlfriend scolding her inattentive boyfriend. I shivered slightly, only managing a strained smile. I began to realize that Angela wanted to be my best friend at all costs, and she would not accept rejection. I felt pushed into a forced relationship I never wanted. This feeling was no longer typical discomfort. It was psychological pressure that kept me constantly defensive, always checking whether Angela might show up somewhere. Things came to a head the week of Christmas. The Night of Lights event was about to happen. Angela invited me to the Christmas night market in the next city. I refused firmly, but maintained a polite tone. She then messaged and called, repeating the request for over an hour. That persistence completely breached my defenses. In a fit of frustration and desperation, I was forced to raise my voice over the phone. "I already told you I can't go." After that call, silence ensued. The Night of Lights happened and concluded. We had no further contact. I sighed with relief, thinking everything was over. The shudder and discomfort had passed. I could return to my normal rhythm of life. But a few weeks later, late one evening, as I was reading, my husband came home with an extremely serious expression. He walked into the bedroom, locked the door, and then recounted what had happened. "I just saw the woman you told me about, the one from the neighborhood committee. She was standing right in front of our garage door. Specifically, she chose a spot in the shadows. She was holding something long, like the kind of lighter used to light a gas stove. I swear I saw her expressionless face clearly in the light from the lighter. It was just cold." I immediately guessed my husband was talking about Angela. My husband, startled, called out to her loudly. Angela flinched violently, and the lighter dropped to the ground. She turned and ran straight into the street. disappearing into the darkness without saying a word. The very next morning, we immediately called a contractor to install a security camera system throughout the house and motion sensor lights in every blind spot. I no longer felt safe in my own home. I lived in constant worry, unable to know or guess what she would do next. After that incident, Angela virtually disappeared from our sight. She no longer walked on the street, nor did she leave her house. But that absence only made me shudder more. Nearly a year passed in that simmering fear. I developed a habit of checking the door locks and the lights on the porch. Only when I heard that Angela's family had sold their house and moved out of the neighborhood did I truly feel released. To this day, whenever I recall Angela's face, her whining voice, and her over-the-top smiling expression, I still feel a deep chill. This story happened early last December. It all began when my best friend Scarlett and I decided to spend a whole day shopping. We had both received coupons in the mail, and it was time to use them to get free lingerie from Victoria's Secret. As soon as we walked into the Victoria's Secret store, I noticed a tall man pacing slowly right by the entrance. He was wearing a red velvet coat with white fur trim, like a cheap Santa Claus costume, over baggy pants, and a hat tilted to one side. He looked like he had just emerged from a terrible Christmas party. Initially, I assumed he was just a shy man, embarrassed to wait for his girlfriend or mother inside a lingerie store. After we finished choosing our lingerie, Scarlett wanted to find some Christmas-themed earrings, so we headed to Claire's. The Claire's store in the mall is usually quite small, and the entire store can be seen from the outside because of the large windows. We were looking at one of the first display racks when I noticed a man standing behind me. I quickly glanced over my shoulder and realized it was the same man from the Victoria's Secret entrance. I told myself again that perhaps he had followed his acquaintance to Claire's. However, I don't like crowded spaces, so I moved away from him. But surprisingly, he shifted closer. I moved farther back, and he edged closer still. I started to feel strange and looked up. He was towering, 6 feet or more. His thick red coat covered most of his body, the long sleeves entirely concealing his hands, and his baggy jeans were wrinkled. I nodded and smiled politely, then quickly moved away and bent down to look at other jewelry. He shifted toward me again, this time almost standing right over me. Then he slid his hand into his pants pocket and began making what I can only describe as a fapping sound, a disgusting wet noise. I wasn't sure what he was doing. Maybe he was itchy, but the movement definitely didn't look like scratching. All the while, he stared intensely at the display rack with a distorted smile, and occasionally glanced at me with a satisfied look that sent chills down my spine. I slowly placed the jewelry back and stood up straight. I glanced at Scarlett. We exchanged looks. She quickly noticed and understood my intent. Scarlett grabbed my hand, whispering that he was a disgusting pervert. I signaled Scarlett to quiet down and suggested moving toward the back of the store, closer to the security cameras and staff. We tried to move closer to the area with employees and cameras, and he continued to follow. We approached a sales associate who was restocking the hair clip display and recounted the incident. After listening, she immediately stopped what she was doing and observed the man. He was still lurking near the jewelry display. The employee walked over, standing between us and him. I couldn't hear clearly what she said, only saw her gesture, asking him to leave the store. The man didn't argue or show any emotion. He simply turned his back and walked out of the store, slowly, as if nothing had happened. We continued shopping in Claire's. After a while, we almost forgot about the strange man, until I looked toward the front of the store and froze. He was standing there, his face pressed against the glass, staring intently at me. His hat was completely crooked, revealing his messy hair underneath. I turned to Scarlett. Damn it. He's here. He's still here. Scarlett pulled my hand. We kept walking along the back wall and moved toward the right side of the store. He mirrored our movement, his eyes never leaving us for a second. Scarlett said he was following us. I remained silent, unsure what to say or how to react. We found the sales associate again, and she saw what he was doing. She told us not to leave the store and that she would call security. I felt both relieved and panicked. About 5 minutes later, the man walked away, occasionally turning back to look until he disappeared into the crowd. After that, the security guard showed up. He was an elderly man, looked frail, and didn't seem urgent at all. He asked what was going on, and we told him. The sales associate confirmed everything, but the security guard only shrugged dismissively. Well, he's gone now. There's not much I can do. Let me know if he comes back. I was shocked, slightly hurt, and disappointed. The sales associate continued to keep a lookout for us as we quickly crossed the mall to the exit. We hurried to the car, getting inside safely. I was truly thankful to the employee at Claire's for her bravery and help. That evening, when I told my boyfriend the story, we called the mall security office to complain. We were told that nothing could be done. The manager tried to explain that the man had an intellectual disability and that at the time of the incident, he was unaccompanied. After a few months of thinking, I'm not entirely sure about that explanation. Despite any disability, he knew exactly what he was doing, especially when the sales associate asked and he responded with a shake of his head. This happened in broad daylight, in a crowded area, and there were two of us. Please be careful and stay vigilant, whether you are in secluded or crowded places. My name is Emily Carter, 21 years old, currently majoring in psychology at New York University. To cover my tuition and living expenses, I work part-time at a McDonald's in downtown Manhattan. My shifts usually last until the early morning, and I always have to walk a long way back to my small apartment in the Lower East Side. That night, everything seemed as usual, just like any other day, until I experienced one of the most terrifying encounters of my life. The clock on my wrist read 3:15 a.m. when I left the store. The streets were deserted, with only the yellow glow of the streetlights and the sound of wind blowing through the dark alleys. The fatigue from the long shift made me want to get home as quickly as possible. I put on my headphones, letting a soft jazz tune fill the silence. As I walked, I suddenly felt the sensation of being watched. A man stood at the corner ahead, under the dim streetlight. He was tall and thin, wearing a gray hoodie and faded jeans. His messy hair and deep-set eyes made me uncomfortable. He took a small step forward, his gaze fixing on my face. I tried to walk faster, but he approached me, his lips curling into an unsettling smile. He complimented me on being beautiful, his voice deep and soft, but it made me shiver. It was clear he was trying to seem friendly, but his eyes pierced through me. I made up a name, just wanting to end the conversation as quickly as possible. But then, he moved closer, reaching out to touch my shoulder. I stepped back, a chill running down my spine. "Sorry, I have to go," I said quickly, hoping he would take the hint. But no, he kept following me. His footsteps were heavy behind me, each step matching the frantic beat of my heart. He offered to walk me home, but I immediately declined, feeling that something was terribly wrong. My refusal seemed to have no effect. I tried to stay calm, trying not to show my fear, but with every passing second, his presence felt more threatening. I glanced around, hoping to see someone or a car, but the street remained eerily quiet. I felt trapped between the darkness and this unwanted man's presence. As I neared my apartment building, I thought I was finally going to escape, but a horrifying thought crossed my mind. He could follow me inside. My building had no security, and the front door was often only locked temporarily. If he followed me in, there would be nothing stopping him from finding where I lived. He began pleading, his voice growing more desperate. I shook my head, standing in front of the door, trying to stay calm, but I was drenched in sweat. I knew if I didn't act quickly, I might be in real danger. Just then, the building door suddenly opened from the inside. A neighbor, Mr. Johnson, had just returned from his night shift. Seizing the opportunity, I quickly slipped inside while he kept the door open. The man outside tried to follow, but I managed to slam the door shut just in time. The window glass separated me from his angry stare. I ran up to my apartment, my feet barely touching the ground. When the door finally locked behind me, I collapsed on the floor, shaking uncontrollably. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could feel the fear overtaking me. The light from the small room was not enough to chase away the darkness in my mind. The next morning, I started the day with a heavy heart. When I opened the door to my apartment, a stack of photos fell to the floor, startling me. I picked them up and was horrified to find a photo from a year ago, when I had just started working at McDonald's, with my hair dyed bright blue. The photos were taken from very close distances. A message was sent to my phone, making my body tremble as I read it. I've always been watching you, Emily. Every night I've been standing across the street, watching you from the window of the apartment across from yours, from the moment you start your shift until you come back. You never noticed me, but I've always been there. My throat tightened, and I couldn't breathe. The feeling of fear and helplessness overwhelmed me as I realized the man had been watching me for a long time, from a very close distance. After that terrifying night, I moved to a new apartment and changed my part-time job. I decided to change my routine, saving money to take a taxi after every shift, no matter what other expenses I had to cut. Still, the figure of that man haunted me in my dreams. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if Mr. Johnson hadn't happened to show up. The thought sends a chill down my spine. New York, the city that never sleeps, sometimes brings nights as haunting as this.
Victor and I have been classmates since high school. When we went to college, we still attended the same school, and our bond grew stronger, making us even closer. After graduating from college, I was lucky to find a job in my field of study, with many opportunities for personal growth. But Victor wasn't as fortunate. He went through many different jobs, studied several other fields, and even held a fairly high position at one point. But then he found himself back at square one. His love life was no different. Victor loved with all his heart, but what he received in return was betrayal. For nearly 20 years, we have remained good friends, always sharing and ready to help each other. Then, one day, Victor cut off all contact and disappeared. The letter he left read, "I need some time for myself. I'm fine, so don't call the police or think anything bad has happened. And see you later, Dylan." I followed his wishes, because I knew that the hardships in his life had hurt him deeply. Perhaps it was best to leave him alone. After all, time heals all wounds. Nearly 6 months passed, and one day, while I was on my way to pick up Rose, my girlfriend, when I suddenly received a phone call. "Dylan!" "Victor!" I exclaimed when I recognized the familiar voice. "You've been gone for so long." "I'm sorry. I'll send you my address. Can you come here now?" "Like right now?" I asked in surprise, while looking over at Rose. My girlfriend smiled lightly and nodded, so I immediately agreed to Victor's request. The address Victor sent me was for a Chipotle restaurant on a busy street. The restaurant was quite small, new, and fairly crowded. Victor ran out from inside, and we happily embraced each other. Don't tell me you're the owner of this place, I teased him a little. You knew even before I even said anything? Is that true? Oh my God, my pal. Victor led Rose and me inside the restaurant, both of us in complete surprise. I've been running this place for over 2 months now, and luckily, everything is going pretty well. I was happy for Victor, hoping that he would truly succeed with this new venture. I introduced Rose to him, and the three of us enjoyed a fun and lively meal together. The burritos and tacos at Victor's place were absolutely perfect. Did you come up with a new recipe, Victor? This is amazing. Victor smiled at me and said, "You'll always get the best service. Make sure to come by often." From then on, I made it a point to visit Victor's restaurant at least once a week, and I started recommending it to some colleagues and acquaintances. The customer flow remained steady, and I was happy for Victor. You look pretty tired, Victor. Is the work too exhausting? I think you should hire some more staff. I felt worried when I saw Victor's gaunt face and the dark circles under his eyes. I'm fine, Victor replied, his face showing no change. The next time we met, I found Victor in a much more upbeat and cheerful mood. It seemed that Victor had managed to adjust his schedule for proper rest, so his mood had improved. But the very next day, he seemed exhausted and drained again. Victor's mood swings made me worry. Every time I asked him, he would brush it off, insisting he was just busy with work. Gradually, it wasn't just fatigue anymore. I noticed bruises appearing on Victor's body, especially on his wrists. A few times, there were injuries that hadn't fully healed yet. The tipping point came one evening when Rose and I went to Victor's restaurant for dinner. As usual, he was the one who served us. That evening, Victor had a stiff smile with a lingering, haunted look in his eyes. He brought the dishes out with trembling hands, and they were covered with blood. Rose covered her mouth tightly to prevent screaming loudly and disturbing the customers around her. I quickly pulled Victor into the kitchen area, feeling the sticky sensation as soon as I touched his hand and the feeling of emptiness. Victor, his hand, only had 3 fingers left. My eyes widened as much as possible to take in as much visual information as I could, followed immediately by Rose's scream. I stumbled as I ran out. She was crawling on the floor with a plate of tacos in front of her. The filling inside was bright red fingers. The surrounding customers ran off. Some even puked on the spot, while Victor's insane laughter echoed. The police arrived after I made the call, 10 minutes later, and Victor was taken away. He just kept laughing, a haunting smile of emotions that couldn't be expressed. Victor couldn't cooperate with the police because he had completely lost his awareness and was taken to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. He had harmed himself by overdosing on illegal substances, which led to hallucinations and a loss of awareness. I went to the hospital to visit Victor after he had been receiving treatment for a week. Victor, are you okay? Dylan. Victor looked at me and smiled, but that smile continued for 20 minutes, with Victor's eyes wide open but blank, devoid of any emotion. Perhaps he had endured too much pain from the broken family, the beatings from his perverse stepfather, and the countless hardships in his life. I still hope that one day Victor will recover, and I will always stand by his side.
I'm Brenna, 27 years old, living in the beautiful city of Toledo, Ohio. I am confident that I have an eye-catching appearance with long black hair and a perfect figure. Even though I get a lot of attention, I haven't had a happy relationship yet. My best friend, Anna, introduced me to the blind date. That was Anna's senior at university. I was also quite comfortable with this, so I agreed. If I can't become a couple, maybe I can have another friend. The blind date took place on Friday night. He invited me to the luxurious restaurant, the Beirut. When I arrived, an extremely handsome guy sitting near the window waved at me. The closer I got, the faster my heart beat. He's actually much more handsome than in the photo. He introduced himself as Vincent, 29 years old. We started eating and chatting. Vincent is truly attractive, not only because of his appearance, but also because of his charming way of speaking and solid career. Vincent said he had a private hospital specializing in the beauty industry. I also feel that Vincent likes me quite a bit. The blind date went very happily. Vincent took me home at 11 o'clock. We exchanged contacts and set up another date. When I got back to my room, I happily picked up my phone and texted Anna about the blind date. But Anna didn't answer. I guess she was asleep. Vincent and I's next few dates were great. I accepted to be his girlfriend after the 5th date. Vincent kept complimenting my hair and hands. He said they were beautiful and made an impression from the first time he saw me. Every appointment, I texted Anna the details, but she didn't reply. I'm not worried or strange, because her job often requires her to travel and disconnect for a few days. I plan to meet Anna to thank her when she returns. One evening, after Vincent and I had finished eating, he gave me a very large and beautiful bouquet of roses. Vincent wanted to invite me to his house and said he had prepared a surprise gift for me. I agreed without thinking too much. Vincent's house is very large and modern. He led me to a room on the 2nd floor. Vincent told me to wait here for a moment. He would come back with a surprise prepared. I hugged a bouquet of roses, feeling so lucky and happy to have found a very good boyfriend. I looked around and saw that the room was quite simple, with a lovely table and chairs, a wooden cabinet in the left corner. It would be a surprise later. I smelled an antibiotic-like smell, but with the added unpleasantness of an animal carcass. I didn't pay too much attention because those two smells were only fleeting. A few minutes later, I wanted to use the restroom. Going around the observation room, I saw the toilet in the right corner. Going inside, I saw yellow hair on the floor, sink, and bathtub. There weren't many of them, but they were still prominent enough for me to see. The hair is long. I'm sure this is a woman's hair. Maybe, in this house, there are relatives living with him. I plan to ask Vincent after he returns. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting my makeup. At the bottom of the mirror, there was a dim red light. I raised my hand to see what it was. Accidentally, I pulled up the mirror. Behind were many medical instruments. I was quite surprised, but remembering Vincent's job as a doctor, I also found the answer. I no longer wonder about the existence, but rather wonder about their location. I closed the mirror and went outside to wait for Vincent. After a while, Vincent still didn't come back. I started to lose patience. I planned to go out and look for him. The house was very large and had many rooms. I walked down the hallway and called Vincent. He didn't answer. I started to feel strange and scared. This case is very similar to the movies I've seen. I will play the main character and be in danger. While thinking about that, Vincent suddenly called out loudly, startling me. He was worried when he didn't see me in the room. Vincent gently raised his hand to his cheek and looked at me. A strange feeling appeared. I slowly closed my eyes.
I will give you long black hair like before, a lovely and soft hand. I will collect beautiful body parts that resemble you. You will be perfected soon, Natalie.
I woke up dreamily, realizing I was lying in bed, the light from the lamp shining straight into my face, making me dizzy. I just heard Vincent's voice. He mentioned something about Natalie. I heard loud, scary laughter and footsteps getting further and further away. He must have gone out. I used all my strength to sit up, trying to stay awake and observe my surroundings. I was in the room at the beginning. surrounded by a lot more medical equipment. Looking to the left, I was startled and covered my mouth with my hand to keep from screaming. It was a woman, but it wasn't right because she didn't have hands, hair, or ears. Or it's a mannequin, but the stitches to attach to the body parts are very clear. I panicked and sat close to the corner of the bed. Looking at my arms, there are many marks. My scalp was also completely numb. I trembled and got out of bed, trying to run away from here as quickly as possible. My head couldn't deduce anything about Vincent anymore. I just want to escape quickly, get out of this evil house and find help. While scared and confused, I accidentally bumped into the cabinet near the door. The closet door opened and 2 women fell to the floor from inside. Each of them is missing some part of their body. The fear was so extreme that I couldn't control my body anymore. I stood there looking at the 2 women and realized one of them is my best friend Anna. Her beautiful blue eyes were sewed shut. The stitches are infected and smell terrible. Anna was still breathing. She was still alive. I helped her up when suddenly I heard footsteps coming closer and closer from outside.
When I was 12, I heard a painful scream while I was sleeping. I told my parents and sister about it the next morning, but I was the only one who heard it. My parents thought I was just dreaming, and my sister freaked out and told me not to talk about stuff like that again. I was sure about how I felt, but then I just brushed it off. Then one night, I jolted awake because the door slammed shut. Before I could even figure out what was happening, I felt the bed shaking and something gripping me hard. It was my sister, Charity. I heard a woman crying. My sister was shaking. I didn't say anything, just listened. There was definitely a woman crying, quiet, but I could hear it. My sister and I just piled under the blankets, turned on our favorite cartoon to block out the crying, and ended up falling asleep without even realizing it. The next morning, my sister was freaked out and told my parents about it. She even backed me up that the screams I heard before could have been real. My parents exchanged serious looks and then turned to us, like, "Did you 2 pull any pranks last night?" "Mom, we were serious. How could we laugh in that situation?" my sister said, sounding pretty helpless. "So where'd the laughing and talking we heard yesterday come from?" Dad asked, and we all just stared at each other in shock. Dad quickly checked around the house and called the local police for help, but they didn't find anything weird. A few nights later, it was a mix of screams, crying, begging, and the scariest part, gunshots. My whole family ran out of the room, all of us with scared eyes, just looking at each other. There were a bunch of police cars on the street, because a lot of families, including ours, had called to report it. That night, the whole neighborhood was wide awake, and everyone was just confused and freaked out. A big group of over 20 officers worked all night into the next day, but they still didn't find anything. It was impossible to figure out where they came from. Slowly but surely, people started moving out of the neighborhood. They weren't patient enough to wait for the police investigation results, so they just decided to bail. Mr. White, Mrs. Eva, Mrs. Kate, all the neighbors who were close to my family decided to do the same thing. Some families said their goodbyes to the ones sticking around and wished them all the best before heading out. But some families and single folks just vanished without a word. Just like that, my family's neighborhood went from a chill spot to a place filled with ghostly and creepy stories. That scary time lasted almost 6 months. A bunch of times, I used a tape recorder and set it up in the basement, because that's where I picked up the clearest sounds. It felt like it was coming from underground, I told my parents at dinner. One day, my next-door neighbor's mom came over to see me. She said she hadn't heard from her daughter in 2 weeks. We were all shocked. Everyone in the neighborhood thought she had just left, so nobody asked or even paid attention. The police looked into it and found out that 13 people were missing out of the 28 residents who were supposed to have left the neighborhood. The tension and confusion hit a whole new level. That same evening, I heard my sister's clear, heartbreaking screams coming from some unknown place. I immediately bolted out of my bedroom and ran to my sister's room, and my mom and dad were there at the same time. "Heather!" My mom yelled her name in a total panic. The room looked totally fine, except for the fact that my sister was missing. The government kicked off a big investigation. All the families still in the neighborhood were moved to a new place to make things easier for the police. Beneath our once nice street is a whole world of evil and demons. There's been a human and arms trafficking ring running for months with 33 victims. They're all young women between 16 and 23 and girls from 5 to 8. They only found 10 survivors who were alive and okay. No one knows where the other victims are, since the ringleader decided to take his own life as soon as he got caught. Everyone probably has their own thoughts about their tragic fate, but they just can't put it into words. My sister was lucky to come back unharmed, but the doctor said the psychological stuff she's dealing with is basically incurable. It's tough to wrap your head around the cruelty that some messed up people dish out to their own kind.
I'm Anna, and my small family just moved to Columbus, Ohio, about 6 months ago. The 2-story house we bought is in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Everything was perfect for the first 3 months. I set up a cozy workspace in the downstairs den. Mike was settling in well at his new job, and Emma quickly made friends at school. We even got to know most of our neighbors, except for the man living in the house next door. Mike said he'd met him once, a retired chemistry professor named Daniel Lee. He lived alone and preferred his privacy. Then winter came, and with it, a strange feeling. In the afternoons, I started to feel tired. My mind was foggy, and I couldn't focus. Headaches appeared often, starting at my temples and spreading to the back of my head. At first, I figured it was just the lack of sunlight and my body adjusting to the colder weather. I wrote down my symptoms in a journal and tried to change my diet, exercise more, and even take vitamin D supplements. But it didn't seem to help. Then Emma started having morning sickness and trouble sleeping at night. "I think we should take Emma to the doctor," I told Mike. "I think you're just worrying too much, Sarah. We just went through a big move. Our bodies need time to adjust." Maybe Mike was right, but I was still going to keep an eye on everything. I started tracking the times we felt worst, the food we ate, even the weather. After a week, the results showed our symptoms seemed to get worse in the evenings and early mornings. One day, I felt my body suddenly and noticeably exhausted after a visit from our neighbor, Mr. Daniel. Mike thought he was pleasant, but I didn't. His eyes were too intense, his smile fake, and he always found reasons to come over more often. The situation became serious when Emma had a seizure at school. The results came back. Emma didn't have a fever, and all tests showed nothing unusual. We were sent home with advice to monitor her and come back if she had more seizures. After Emma fell asleep, I told Mike, "I think there's something in this house making us sick, and Mr. Lee is involved." Mike was surprised. "Daniel? He's very friendly. He has a chemistry degree and researches narcotics." I looked him up. "So what? That doesn't incriminate him. I've seen him lurking around the house when you're at work, and our symptoms get worse every time he comes over. You're being paranoid. Maybe you should see a therapist." I felt helpless and disappointed after talking to Mike. He insisted on defending a stranger instead of worrying about his wife and daughter. I ordered small surveillance cameras online, placing them on the porch, at the front door, and in the main ventilation room. I also bought an air testing kit and sent samples to a private lab. I started sleeping in Emma's room for her safety. One night, I heard a sound, a soft hiss, like gas escaping. I turned on the light and checked around, but saw nothing. The next morning, I checked the cameras. At 2 a.m., Daniel Lee approached our house, wearing a gas mask and carrying a small device. Then, he moved to Emma's window, but seemed to give up when he noticed the window was tightly closed. I felt nauseous and terrified. I was right. He was poisoning us, but why? I needed more concrete evidence before going to the police. I didn't tell Mike about the video or the samples until I had enough proof. The lab results came back a day later. According to the report, they found traces of methadone and hydrocodone in the air and drinking water samples. Small amounts, but enough to cause the symptoms we were experiencing with prolonged exposure. What should I do now? I couldn't confront Lee alone. I needed Mike to trust me. I waited until Emma was asleep, then sat down with Mike and showed him the video and the lab report. Mike stared at the screen, then at me. There was something in his eyes. Fear? Guilt? We need to call the police. Number not yet. We need more evidence. Mike, he's slowly killing us. I'll talk to Daniel tomorrow. There might be an explanation. Mike's answer confused me even more. Why would he want to talk to the person harming his family? Why not call the police immediately? A horrifying thought suddenly struck me, but I immediately dismissed it. No, Mike couldn't know about this. He couldn't be involved. That night, I couldn't sleep. I rewatched the camera footage again and again, and then I noticed what I had missed. On one of the old videos, there was a figure at the front door at midnight. Not Daniel Lee, but Mike. He was opening the door as if waiting for someone. I rummaged through Mike's phone when he went to the bathroom the next morning. I found messages between him and Daniel, messages talking about dosage, effects, and leaving no trace. And then I found the reason. When she's gone, I'll have everything, the insurance and freedom. Stick to the plan. Slowly, no one will suspect. I felt like my world collapsed. My husband was trying to kill me. I took screenshots of the messages, backed up the videos to a hard drive that I hid in my bag. I told Mike I was taking Emma to the doctor for further checks. Instead, I drove straight to the police station. They arrested Mike and Daniel that very day. A search of Daniel's house revealed a mini laboratory where he concocted drug mixtures. They found documents on methods of slow poisoning that leave no trace, and a large payment from Mike's secret account. Investigations showed Mike was having an affair and wanted to be free but didn't want to split assets or pay alimony. He met Daniel, a chemist who had been fired for unethical experiments, on an online forum. Together, they planned to slowly poison me, causing symptoms similar to a mental disorder and eventually leading to a seemingly natural death. Mike and Daniel were both charged with conspiracy to commit murder and aggravated assault. I was granted a restraining order and took Emma away from Columbus to a small coastal town on the shores of Lake Erie, a place where we could start over. It's been 6 months since we left. Emma has recovered both physically and mentally. I'm still healing, still learning to trust again.
Gray is a cool, classy man who's got it all together. He's crashing at some fancy hotel with his hot young girlfriend. They've been a thing for like 2 years now. I'm so over this, Gray. I want a wedding everyone's gonna be jealous of, Gray's girlfriend whines. I've still got a ton of legal stuff to deal with my wife. Plus, I want to be there for my 2 boys, Gray says. The girlfriend's always bugging Gray for being his official wife. Gray's always acting like he's this big family guy, but he's constantly coming up with excuses to keep his girl happy on the side. That's it. The girlfriend grabs her phone, ready to call Gray's wife and stir things up. The two get into it, and things totally blow up. We're done, Gray says, all cold and serious. He opens the door and walks out, looking totally white. Gray grabs a cab to head home. He's trying to figure out what to tell his wife about getting home so late. When Gray looks back, the familiar city street turns into some random, empty road by the edge of the woods. "You sure this road goes to the place I'm trying to get to?" Gray asks, all worried. "Chill out, this is a shortcut," the driver says, sounding pretty cold. Gray notices the driver keeps staring at him in the rearview mirror. His rough face and beard totally freak Gray out. 5 minutes later, the car is totally silent, and it's giving him the creeps. From the driver's cold stare to the empty road getting even quieter, Gray starts feeling more and more uneasy. Why'd he pick this road? A thought pops up, and then he feels a wave of anxiety. The driver suddenly slams on the brakes, gets out to make a call, and Gray's just sitting there all confused. Gray rolls down the window to listen in. "The stuff's here. When are you gonna be here?" "I don't have all day," the driver says, kinda annoyed. Gray's sitting in the car, trying to make sense of everything, but he's freaking out. What the heck is he even talking about? How he talks about goods makes Gray realize he may be in serious trouble. Am I the goods? The question keeps popping up in his head, freaking him out. He's about to dip, but then he realizes the car door's locked, which makes Gray even more sure he's right. Gray's heart's racing. Panic's creeping in. But at the same time, his survival instinct kicks in big time. Out of nowhere, Gray spots this small, pale yellow thing on the car floor. It is the driver's license. He looks at the photo in the car, and it definitely doesn't look like the driver. Right then, Gray's 100% sure he's the thing the driver was talking about. "I gotta figure out how to get out of here," Gray mutters, and right then, the driver comes back to the car. Gray's freaking out, torn between wanting to escape this mess no matter what, and being scared of what he might have to do next. The second the driver gets in, Gray grabs the pen from his shirt and starts jabbing him in the neck. Once he's sure the driver's out cold, Gray grins like a maniac, showing off his red teeth. "This feels awesome." The rush of taking the driver out totally takes over. Gray isn't the classy, successful guy he used to be anymore. After struggling for a bit to drag the driver's body to the back seat, Gray's about to drive off when a car comes flying at him from the other way. Two guys, all dusty and rough-looking, step out of the car. "Come on, bring this stuff over here," one of them yells. Gray figures this is the driver's deal. After a few seconds of thinking it over, Gray just goes for it and plays the driver. "In the trunk, hurry up." A guy quickly walks up, pops open the trunk, and inside is the body of a moose, a pretty rare animal. Gray gets it now. He looks at the two guys with a blank stare, slowly pulling out that pen from earlier. While the other guy's checking out the surroundings, he spots a dark shadow inside the car. "How the hell would a fourth person know about this?" he grumbles, walking over to open the door. The empty road by the forest suddenly fills with loud, scary screams. About 20 minutes later, Gray drives off in the two guys' car, leaving the taxi with 3 bodies crammed inside. It's almost 3 a.m., and Gray's speeding down the street like it's no big deal. He's in a daze, heart racing, foot slammed on the gas, just laughing like a maniac, all pumped up. After 2 days on the run, Gray gets busted by the police while he's just stopping at a convenience store to grab something. "You're under arrest for murder, Mr. Taylor." But the victim the police are talking about isn't the 3 guys dealing in rare animals. It is Gray's girlfriend. So that night, Gray ended up taking 4 lives. When they arrest him, facing the cops, Gray doesn't feel scared like he did before. Instead, a little grin shows up on his face, like he's loving the end of a game he totally nailed. From being scared and freaked out, he slowly starts feeling good, like a rush, enjoying making someone stop breathing. He doesn't care about regret or what happens next. To him, it is all just a game, and he is the one calling the shots. The crazy villain gets slapped with a life sentence and no chance of parole.
I quit my security guard job 3 years ago, but the memory of that night still haunts me. Every time I see a no signal on a screen, my heart starts pounding. In 2019, I was working the night shift as a security guard at Walmart. After 2 years on the job, I knew every nook and cranny of that place. That night, I was sitting in the security room, drinking coffee and watching NBA on my phone. The clock had just struck 2 a.m. when a loud crash echoed from somewhere in the building. It sounded like someone had knocked over a whole shelf. I immediately switched to the CCTV screens. Images from many CCTV displayed on 6 screens, covering everything from the main entrance to the hallways, from the central lobby to each individual department. I checked each angle, zooming in on areas where something might have happened. Nothing. Everything was silent. I grabbed my flashlight and keys and started patrolling from the ground floor. I meticulously checked each department. After about an hour of patrolling, finding nothing unusual, I returned to the security room. Maybe it was just a stray cat knocking over a trash can outside. I sat down, intending to go back to my phone, when I suddenly noticed something strange on CCTV number 8, which covered the best electronics department on the 2nd floor. A faint, bluish light, like the glow from a TV screen. I zoomed in on that CCTV. Yes, there was definitely something glowing inside the store, but how could that be? I had just checked that store, and everything was off. I quickly grabbed my flashlight and keys to head back to the 2nd floor. The 2nd floor hallway was darker than the ground floor, with only a few emergency lights illuminating it. As I approached Best Electronics, I clearly saw the blue light from inside. I unlocked the door and stepped in. The scene inside stunned me. In the middle of the store, in front of a flat-screen TV, stood 2 people, an elderly man and an elderly woman. They stood close together, staring intently at the screen. "Excuse me, what are you 2 doing here?" I said loudly. The woman turned to look at me. Her face was wrinkled, and she offered a gentle smile with calm eyes. "This is the only program that makes him happy." I looked over at the man. He was still staring straight at the screen, unmoving. My hand unconsciously tightened its grip on the flashlight. "How did you get in here?" "We closed at 11 p.m. "We just need to watch a little longer. He really likes this show," the woman said. A chill ran down my spine from the way she spoke. The man hadn't moved or said a word since I entered. I started to wonder if he was even alive. That thought made me want to run immediately. "I have to report this. You 2 need to come out with me." My voice was stiff, trying to hide the rising panic. "Just 5 more minutes. Please. I'll call the police if you don't cooperate." I pulled out my walkie-talkie, my hand trembling as I pressed the button to call the night supervisor. While calling, I didn't dare take my eyes off the 2 people. "Jake, I've got 2 intruders in Best Electronics on the 2nd floor. Need backup and call the police." "Roger, keep them there. I'm calling the police now." When I hung up and turned back, the 2 people were gone. I stood frozen. I had only looked down at the walkie-talkie for a second to hang up. How could they disappear so quickly? I shined my flashlight around the entire store, my hands shaking uncontrollably. My breathing became rapid, as if there wasn't enough oxygen in my lungs. I shined my flashlight all over the store. No one. I checked the storage room in the back, the employee restroom, all empty. The TV was still on, displaying a blue screen. The police arrived. They searched the entire building, but found no one. There were no signs of forced entry at any of the entrances. All the doors were still locked, and the alarm system was functioning normally. "Are you sure you saw them?" the police officer asked me with skepticism. I understood immediately. He thought I was hallucinating. Absolutely sure. They were standing right in front of that TV. They asked to review the CCTV footage. We sat in the security room, replaying the recording from 3 a.m. On the screen, I saw myself opening the door to Best Electronics and stepping inside. I stood in the store, shining my flashlight everywhere. And I was talking to thin air. I froze, feeling like I was going crazy. In the CCTV footage, the store was completely empty. It was just me standing alone, talking to the darkness. But I swear with a God that I saw those two people. I still vividly remember that woman's voice and her eyes. The police examined the CCTV footage until morning. On the screen, the TV was indeed on, emitting a blue light. But no one else was visible besides me. I worked for 3 more months, then quit. Not because I was afraid, but because I couldn't focus anymore. Every night on patrol, I would stop by Best Electronics. The TV was always off, the store always empty. But sometimes I still felt like someone was watching me from inside. 6 months later, I read that Best Electronics had closed down. The reason: low revenue and unexplained technical incidents. They said the electronic devices in the department would often turn on by themselves at night, especially the large flat-screen TV. That department is now a bakery, but I never dare go in. Some nights when I drive by, I still see the dim light from inside. It's as if the old couple is still standing there, watching their favorite show on a non-existent screen.
My story begins on an autumn night, with the weather starting to turn cold. Everything was as quiet as usual at my small farm. I am Alan, a man in my 60s, living alone since my wife Susan passed away from cancer. This house used to be filled with laughter and love, but now it only holds memories, items that are missing their owners, and my beloved dog, Max, who is my only companion. That night, I couldn't sleep. It seemed like the cold in my heart wouldn't let me rest. I stepped outside, breathing in the cool night air, with Max by my side. Since Susan left, I have often suffered from insomnia, and taking evening walks has become a habit of mine. Max and I wandered around the garden, under the dim moonlight, and the rustling sound of dry leaves falling. Everywhere I looked, I saw familiar images of Susan. I felt so happy, yet it made me feel even more lonely. As we passed by the window of my wife and I's bedroom, the room I had left empty since Susan's passing, a shadow flashed by very quickly. I stood frozen for a few seconds, wondering if that shadow belonged to someone. The room had been empty for a long time. I never allowed anyone to enter and always kept the door locked. There was no reason to accept that appearance except to think that someone had broken into the house. I was angry and quickly ran back inside, grabbing the rifle I had registered a long time ago, just in case something happened. Max walked beside me, staying close enough to understand the expression on his owner's face. We walked together towards the bedroom. After the lock was gently undone, I kicked the door open and rushed in, with the rifle tightly in my hands and my finger ready on the trigger. But the room was completely normal, with no signs of any break-in. I looked around every corner, checked the wardrobe, peeked under the bed, but all that surrounded me was silence. I sighed in relief, thinking it was just a bird flying by. I patted Max's head to comfort him, and together, we returned to the room on the ground floor. The next day, I woke up, and Max was not in the room as usual. I called for Max, but he didn't appear. I searched everywhere in the house. Finally, I discovered him standing in front of the bedroom door, his eyes bloodshot and growling non-stop, as if something was making him feel threatened. I approached slowly and called Max, but he only growled more, refusing to move. I stood there silently, my heart filled with confusion. Max is a smart dog. He wouldn't be making noise unless he sensed something unusual.
but sometimes a strange smell in the air could make him uncomfortable. I comforted Max by patting his head, hoping to make him feel better. Since that morning, I've always felt a sense of unease. Max is not a stubborn dog, nor does he bark unnecessarily unless it's an emergency. Yet he still stood growling in front of the bedroom door, a place that now only held coldness and emptiness. I comforted Max and paid more attention to him, telling myself that it was just his keen senses reacting to a strange smell. But a week later, everything began to get even more strange. Sometimes I would hear footsteps in the middle of the night. They were soft and definitely not Max's. The bedroom door would sometimes open on its own, even though I was sure I had locked it securely. One morning, I discovered Susan's wedding dress, the dress I had carefully folded and placed in the wardrobe, now lying on the floor. I started to worry for real. The house, that was once my safe haven, now seemed to have something invisible lurking within it. A chilling feeling crept in, as if someone were watching me every time I passed by that bedroom. Max also became more tense. He no longer wandered around the house comfortably like before. Instead, he would often lie in front of the door, his eyes wide open and alert. Then one night, when it was pouring rain, I heard scratching at the door. The noise was coming from the bedroom door. A cold shiver ran down my spine, and this time, fear wouldn't let me ignore it any longer. I decided that I had to get to the bottom of it. I grabbed the flashlight, my heart pounding as I approached the room. Max was standing there. This time, he didn't growl, but just silently stared at me, his eyes filled with worry. I bent down to reassure him, then reached for the door handle. The door slowly creaked open, and the space around me was engulfed in darkness. The flashlight beam illuminated, and I saw a figure sitting at the edge of the bed, a faint shadow that I never wanted to face. My heart seemed to stop, my hand gripping the flashlight tightly, unable to move. The figure slowly turned around, and I froze in shock. It was Susan, her face pale, her eyes empty, and the weak smile I remembered turning into a twisted, eerie grin. Could it be Susan's ghost? Why is she here? In that moment, I realized something. This room not only held memories, but also contained the unresolved pain of Susan that had yet to find peace. She had never left here, never truly rested in peace. My loneliness, my pain, and my longing had kept her here, preventing her from finding peace. That was the reason I always felt her presence in this house. I sat down on the floor, my heart racing, tears streaming down my face. Looking at Susan's figure, I realized that I had trapped her. What I had been feeling all this time was not the intrusion of a stranger, but the presence of my own memories, memories of the one I missed every single moment. Susan, I miss you so much. A cold breeze swept through the window, and I startled awake, finding myself lying on the floor, holding Susan's wedding dress in my arms. Max quietly approached and lay down beside me, his eyes softening. A sense of peace washed over me as I understood everything. The house felt lighter, as if the burden that had weighed on me all this time had finally been lifted. In the evenings that followed, I no longer heard footsteps, nor did I feel that chilling sensation when passing by the bedroom. Max also returned to his usual self, happy and comfortable as before. Now, I know that Susan has truly gone, and the only thing I can do is cherish the beautiful memories we once shared together. I must continue to live joyfully and happily, just as she would have wanted. I will still take evening walks with Max, still remember Susan, but no longer with the pain and regret.